Hey guys, Luke here, we're back in our deck profile. Yet again, I am fucking sick. So this is gonna be an odd sounding one, but you know, the best profiles come when I'm fucking hungover or sick or puke my guts up. So we're doing Witchcrafters today. Witchcrafters is a pretty strong deck. They're very much a control deck. They're quite underrated, I feel, but when they're getting new supports, including a fusion in the future, I feel like this deck will really take off. So for those looking at this in the future, this is how I used to play Witchcrafters in the Stone Age. Let's go into it. Okay, we have 5 Witchcrafter monsters that are above level 5. I'll show you them now. Arguably the best one is Witchcrafter Madame Verre. Madame Verre is a level 8 Witchcrafter monster. She has 2 effects. The first effect being that during damage calculation, if a spellcaster monster battles an opponent's monster, you can quick effect reveal any number of spells with different names in your hand, and if you do, the battling monster gains 1000 attack for each spell. Now this isn't restricted to just Witchcrafter spells, this can be any spell whatsoever. And you know, in this deck we run Extravagance, we run Foolish Burial Goods, Reasoning, Call by the Grave, Raigeki, loads of different shit that you can just reveal and boost up the monster in battle. Also, her other effect, which I know annoys the fuck out of Sean whenever I use it, is that she has a quick effect that you can discard a spell and negate all face-up monster effects your opponent controls for the rest of the turn. This can be very good because it's good at interrupting your opponent's plays, and overall she's a very good card. It's always great to have her in defense mode because her defense is 2800 and also her attack's quite low with 1000. With her effect that boosts up other monsters, it'll be no problem at all, because some other monsters we have do have high attack. One such example is Witchcrafter Golem Aruru. Now you might recognize this card going around because she's not really restricted to Witchcrafter decks at all. So she's a level 8, 2800 attack spellcaster monster, and when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a spellcaster monster you control or targets him for attack, you can special summon Golem Aruru from your hand and then bounce a card that your opponent controls. This is very good interruption for whenever your opponent's going into battle. Only running it at 1 though in this deck. I feel like most decks run it at 1. Although she's very good, she can be a bit of a brick, especially in the opener. But I feel like Golem Aruru is very important for this deck. And these are the only 2 level 8s we run in this deck for our rank 8 play that we have in the extra. Now, Haine is my personal favourite Witchcrafter monster, not only because she is powerful and good looking, but because when I run 2 of her, I can use this really funny XYZ monster. Number 89, Mind Hacker. So, Witchcrafter Haine I feel is very, very good. She is a level 7 spellcaster monster with 2400 attack and 1000 defense. She has a quick effect that if you can discard a spell, you can destroy 1 card your opponent controls. Now here's the thing I should have mentioned at the start of Witchcrafters. A lot of the Witchcrafter spells have 2 effects. They have their main effect that you can use, and then also the second effect is what cards in the graveyard you can add to your hand at the end phase if you didn't use it this turn. So Witchcrafters are very good at recycling their spell cards, and of course, as you know from Madame Verre already and Haine, having spell cards in hand is very important to get the full benefit of the monsters and also the full benefit of spells. This recycling is very, very good, so it's very good at breaking boards of your opponent. The last Witchcrafter monster above level 5 is Witchcrafter Edel. Witchcrafter Edel isn't essential. I just run her in the deck because I think it's fun, especially because we run Reasoning in this deck. It's good to have more levels to target when you activate the card. Edel is probably definitely the weakest of all these Witchcrafters, but she does a nice effect. A quick effect is you can discard 1 spell, special summon 1 Witchcrafter monster from your hand. Which, you know, is decent, but when we're going into the likes of the other lower level Witchcrafter monsters, it's very good because they can special summon from deck rather than hand. But since we only run 1 Madame Verre and 1 Golem Aruru, I suppose Edel can be quite decent because Madame Verre and Haine can be quite a brick in the hand. Next up, we run 3 copies of Witchcrafter Schmietta. I love Schmietta. I think Schmietta is very, very good. It's also very good when you know what she does and don't forget her effect halfway through the game like I do. So her first effect is during the main phase, quick effect. You can tribute this card, then discard 1 spell and special 1 Witchcrafter monster from your deck, except for herself. This can be very, very good just to go out into your bigger Witchcrafter monsters such as Haine or Madame Verre. Also, one thing I like to do is kind of like loop it around, so you can go from Schmietta to Pittore to Genni and then just go into the big ones to get as many different spells spells and witchcrafters in the grave so you can activate multiple effects. Schmietta is also very good because you can banish her from the graveyard to send a Witchcrafter spell from your deck to the grave, which is very good recycling because, as you know, most Witchcrafter spells have the effect that if you're in the grave during the end phase and you didn't use the first effect this turn, you add it straight back to your hand. That's why Schmietta is very, very good in this deck. Definitely essential to run at 3. I also run 3 copies of Witchcrafter Genni. Witchcrafter Genni is very good. She's a level 1, which is good for some of the links we play in this deck. She has the same effect as Schmietta in the sense that you can tribute this card and special summon 1 Witchcrafter monster from your deck after discarding 1 spell. But she also has a second effect in the graveyard that you can banish her with another Witchcrafter spell to activate that spell, which is very good when it comes to the likes of Collaboration, where you can basically just get your Witchcrafters to attack multiple times, or even Creation when you want to search out 2 Witchcrafters. Genni is very, very good. As I mentioned, it's good when you're kind of looping in the sense of getting more Witchcrafter monsters and spells into the graveyard, like going from Schmietta to Genni to Pittore. That's why I run 3 Genni in this deck. I also run 2 copies of Witchcrafter Pittore. I really like Pittore. It's pretty much the end of all the Witchcrafter monsters we play. I know there's another level 2 called Pottery, but I don't think Pottery is very good. If you want to play around with ratios, maybe take out one of the Gennis or one of the Pittores and put it in, just because it's good for having more reasoning targets. But I think Pittore is very good instead. Of course, she has the same effect. It's a quick effect during the main phase. Should be discard 1 spell, especially on 1 Witchcrafter monster from your deck. But she also has the effect in the graveyard that you can banish her to draw 1 card, and then you can discard 1 Witchcrafter card from your hand. This would be good because it's a good draw power. Also, it's very, very good because the card you can discard could be a spell that you can just bring back to your hand during the end phase. That's why I think Pittore is very, very good in this deck. One thing I will tell you to be careful of, since we also run Pot of Extravagance in this deck, Pot of Extravagance restricts you from drawing anymore after you use that card. So you can't use Pittore's effect the same turn you use Pot of Extravagance. So that about does it for the Witchcrafter monsters. Let me just move on to a few more bullshitty monsters around this deck. The card Sean absolutely fucking loves, Eater of Millions. I love this card too, because it is fucking hilarious. You bring him, he cannot be normal summoned or set. He must be special summoned from the hand by banishing 5 or more cards from your hand, field, and or extra deck face down. And basically he gains 100 attack for each face down banished card. Also, if he battles at the start of damage step, you get to banish the monster that was in battle with Eater of Millions. Of course, you can only use this effect once per turn, so it's not as problematic to get over him if your opponent has 2 monsters, but I still think Eater of Millions is very good and worth playing in this deck. Witchcrafters don't have an over-reliance on the extra deck, that's why I think Eater of Millions is like a good card that you can play. Witchcrafters are good at controlling the board, Eater of Millions are just another annoying challenge controlling your opponent's way. Speaking of annoying challenges you can throw your opponent's way, of course you run Ash Blossom. 2 copies of Ash Blossom. You know what this does. It's a hand trap that stops your opponent from adding card from deck to the hand, special summon from the deck, and also send a card from deck to the graveyard. Some people might run it at 3, but I'm very restrictive with the way I want to have ratios in this deck, so I don't run it at 2. Okay, and we also run 2 copies of Effect Veiler. Effect Veiler I've been using so much lately. It's become more affordable because of the structure deck it was reprinted in, but also because I love running the Access Code Talker engine now. And since Witchcrafters aren't overly reliant on this deck, there's no harm having the Access Code Talker engine in it and also having Effect Veiler. There's literally no brick with Effect Veiler. You can use her to negate your opponent's monster effect during your opponent's main phase. You can use her to go into Access Code Talker using the combo I'll show later in the video. So that does it for the monsters in this deck. Let's go right into the spells. Now for the main searcher of this deck, it's Witchcrafter Creation. Witchcrafter Creation searches out any Witchcrafter monster from your deck and adds it to your hand. It also has the same effect that I mentioned earlier, that if you didn't use Creation this turn, it's in your graveyard. During the end phase, you get to add it back to your hand if you control a Witchcrafter monster. Just overall great recycling. A lot of these Witchcrafter spells have that same effect, so it's good to really get the full benefit of your Witchcrafter monster's effects. Another good Witchcrafter spell, very powerful, is Witchcrafter Unveiling. I was kind of hemming and hawing about the ratios of this, but I think 2 copies is more than enough that you'll need. Unveiling just special summons a Witchcrafter monster from your hand, and also has the same effect as most of the other ones, where if you didn't use it this turn, you can add it from your graveyard to your hand during the end phase and control a Witchcrafter. The Witchcrafter monster Reborn is Witchcrafter Holiday. Special in the Witchcrafter monster from your graveyard. Also, same bullshit, if you don't use this this turn, you can use the second effect, control a Witchcrafter monster in end phase, add it back to your hand. Basically, monster Reborn for Witchcrafters that you can recycle. Witchcrafter Collaboration is pretty good. Honestly, if I didn't run Genni, I probably wouldn't even run Collaboration. Collaboration is good because you can target one Witchcrafter monster you control, it can make a second attack during each battle phase this turn. Also, if it attacks this turn, your opponent cannot activate spell trap cards until the end of the damage step. And also it's the same with recycling effect as all the other Witchcrafter spells. Also run Witchcrafter Bystreet. This is the first continuous Witchcrafter spell that we have in this deck. So the first time a Witchcrafter monster you control be destroyed each turn by battle or a card effect, it is not destroyed. Also has the same recycling effect as most of the other Witchcrafter spells. I also run Witchcrafter Scroll. This is the second Witchcrafter continuous spell. Once per turn, when a spellcaster monster destroys a monster by battle, you can draw one card. And of course, that's the same recycling spell as all the other Witchcrafter spells. I don't run a Witchcrafter Draping in this deck. Honestly, I just don't think Draping is that good. And considering that we already have spell and trap card removal in terms of Cosmic Cyclone and Harpie's Feather Duster in this deck, I don't think it's worth running. Besides, these ratios are very good, it's handy enough to recycle, and we also run a bunch of other powerful spells that I don't feel the need to run Draping. Freshly reprinted, we got Pot of Extravagance, thank fuck, because this card is way more affordable now. So at the start of your main phase 1, you can banish 3 or 6 random cards face down from your extra deck, draw 1 card for every 3 cards banished. So Pot of Extravagance I feel is very good for this deck, since you don't have an overly reliance on the extra deck. That's why I think Pot of Extravagance is definitely worth running. But please note that you can only activate this at the start of your main phase 1, and also if you activate this, you cannot use Pittore's graveyard effect. Going for more draw power, here is Upstart Goblin. You don't really mind giving your opponent that extra 1000 life points to draw a card, mostly because this is a control deck. You're never really going to go for the big OTK with Witchcrafters, so Upstart Goblin just giving your opponent an extra 1000 life points isn't too much of an issue. We also run 2 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. Foolish Burial Goods is pretty good for this deck because it sends one of your Witchcrafter spells from the deck to the graveyard. That's very good because, as you know, during the end phase, if you didn't use that spell's first effect, you can add it to your hand to control a Witchcrafter monster. That's run 2 copies of this. I see a lot of decks run 3, but I find it to be a bit bricky, especially if you open up all 3, which is just no good whatsoever. 2 I think is a nice consistent amount. In terms of spell and trap card removal, as I mentioned earlier, I run 1 copy of Harpie's Feather Duster. Just destroys all spells and traps your opponent controls, and 1 copy of Cosmic Cyclone. Honestly, this is just to deal with those problematic spells and trap cards your opponent might run, such as Mystic Mine or any of the other bullshit stuff that they like to run. Going into the fun stuff now, I absolutely love Reasoning in this deck. So for those of you who don't know what Reasoning does, your opponent declares a monster level. You excavate cards from the top of your deck until you excavate a monster that can be normal summoned or set. If that monster is the same level as is declared by your opponent, send all evacuated cards to the graveyard, but if it's not, you can special summon that monster to your field and send the rest of the cards to the graveyard. Reasoning's very good because it mills a lot of your Witchcrafter spells that you can bring back to your hand during the end phase, and also since Witchcrafters have varying levels such as Haine being a 7, Madame Verre being an 8, Schmietta being a 4, Pittore being a 3, it's very unlikely that your opponent's going to have the full luck in the world to call out the right level. Of course, I run Call by the Grave, pretty standard. Call by the Grave just helps you if your opponent has some nasty hand traps that want to stop your combo. Call by the Grave handles that. I also run Monster Reborn because it's very powerful. I know we have 2 copies of Holiday, so it's already fine enough that we can be recycling or Witchcrafter monsters back to the field. But Monster Reborn is good because in case your opponent has a monster in their graveyard that you don't want them bringing out over and over again, use Monster Reborn to your side. And also I play Raigeki because Raigeki is fun, Raigeki is fun. Alright, I play 2 copies of Witchcrafter Patronus. I love Witchcrafter Patronus. It's very good because it's a continuous trap and you can target 1 spellcaster monster that is banished or in your graveyard. Shuffle into the deck, and if you do, add 1 Witchcrafter spell from your deck to your hand. So Patronus is good because, as you know from earlier, a bunch of your Witchcrafter monsters in the graveyard, they banish themselves to get their effect. So Patronus is a good way of recycling them back into your deck and also adding a spell to your hand. Patronus has a second effect, that if it's in the graveyard, but not the turn it is sent there, you can banish it, then target any number of your banished Witchcrafter spells with different names, add them to your hand. This is very, very good and powerful. A lot of what we play here, such as Genni, banishes or Witchcrafter spells as well, so Patronus is a good way of getting them back to our hand. Especially since we run 3 copies of Genni, it's good to have 2 copies of Patronus. Right, that does it for the main deck. Let's go on to the extra deck. Let's start with XYZ. This is number 89 Mind Hacker, like I mentioned before. It's brought out by 2 level 7 monsters, which is the 2 copies of Haine in this deck. It is a Psychic type rank 7 XYZ with 2800 attack, and it has a pretty funny and unique effect I really like. Once per turn, you can attach 1 material from this card, look at your opponent's extra deck, and banish 1 monster from it face down. At the end of battle phase, if this card destroyed a monster by battle, you can target 1 card in your opponent's graveyard, banish it face down. If a card your opponent owns and possesses is banished face down, while you control this card, except for the damage step, you can banish cards from the top of your opponent's deck face down, equal to their face down banished cards. Which is very good, I find, because we run Eater of Millions in this deck, so I find this a really funny engine to start banishing your opponent's cards face down. I know it's a bit annoying, it's a bit Grand Maju, cancerous sort of bullshit, but I find it really fucking funny, so of course I'm going to play it, why not? Now, as I mentioned before, such as in my Chaos Lightsworn deck profile, Sean and I are a big fan of the number 97 combo, which gets us our big boy number 100. This is our easy way to get 9000 beater and OTK with this deck, but as I mentioned before, you're not really OTKing much with Witchcrafters, but if the opportunity is there, I'll definitely be doing it with the number 97. The other cards we run to make this combo work are number 107 or number 71. Number 107 I find to be pretty good. It's pretty standard to have it in this deck, but the reason why we run number 71, which is different from most other decks, is because this is a rank 3 monster. Now, we already know that we run 2 copies of Pittore in this deck, so going into a rank 3 isn't impossible. Also, this number 71 has a good effect that once per turn, if this card has material, you can target 1 number XYZ monster in your graveyard except 71 and special summon it. So say there's a situation where somehow number 97 is in the graveyard and you have the ability to bring out number 71. What number 71 can do is you can use its own material to bring back number 97 and attach the material number 71 has to number 97. Of course, that's very situational, but we're just thinking if we ever do come to that turmoil, it'll be a very good way to get our number 97 back and then go straight into our number 100. That's why number 71 I feel like is a good contender for this deck. So that about does it for XYZ. Let's move on to the rest of the extra deck, which is links. Okay, we have 10 more cards in the extra deck and it's all linked monsters. Again, I want to specify that Witchcrafters don't have an over-reliance on the extra deck. So you can get as creative as you want when it comes to the extra deck and really play around with whatever you feel like is going to be right and whatever you think is going to be cool for this deck. Now, since we will run 3 copies of Witchcrafter Genni, it's not uncommon that we'll have a bunch of Link 1 monsters, such as 2 copies of Link Rebo and 1 copy of Relinquish Anima. Both of these guys, their link requirements are 1 level 1 monster. Link Rebo is very good because when your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can tribute this card and change the opponent's attacking monster's attack to 0. Relinquish Anima, you may notice, has 1 link arrow is pointing upwards. This is how it's able to steal one of your opponent's monsters in that zone that's pointed to, and it's able to gain its attack. That is by equipping that monster to it in your spell and trap card zone. Now, speaking of low link rating monsters we run, we also run Salamangreat Almirage. Almirage only takes 1 normal summon monsters with 1000 or less attack. I find Almirage to be pretty good because it's pretty much, I find whenever I'm using it, Almirage is mostly coming out on the 2nd turn, mostly because it's a good way to sort of set up to protect your more important Witchcrafter monsters such as your Madame Verre, your Haine, for when your opponent's going on to the next turn. That's why I run Almirage at 1 in this deck. Moving on, we have two Nightmare cards, Phoenix and Unicorn. These are pretty standard. Unicorn's a link 3, Phoenix is a link 2. When they are brought out, Phoenix, you need to discard a card and then you can target one spell trap your opponent controls and destroy it. Also, if Phoenix is co-linked, when this effect is activated, you can draw one card. Unicorn pretty much has the same effect, however, instead of just one spell and trap card, you can discard one card, target one card on the field and return to the deck. Yeah, these are pretty standard cards you find across a lot of different decks. Apart from our access code talker, it's very unlikely we'll go into a link 4. So you can throw in whatever alternative you want, whether that be Burrow Sword, Burrow End Dragon or whatever, but the one I choose to run is Yugioh Skull Dread. He's a very good link 4, all he takes is 2+ monsters with different names, but based on the amount of monsters that you use to bring him out, he has different effects. So if it's 2+, if a monster is nor special summoned to a zone this card points to, that monster gains 300 attack and defense. If it's 3+, once per turn during the main phase, you can special summon one monster from your hand. And probably the most powerful is if you use 4 material to bring him out. When this card is link summoned, you can draw 4 cards and place 3 at the bottom of your deck, which is just very good to take a look through what your deck has and then get the only essential card you really need to your hand. But as I said, it's very unlikely we're going to get a link 4. It's very rare, but if you can find a way to do it, I find Yugioh Skull Dread to be the best way to go about. Maybe in some situations, some people might prefer to run Burrow End Dragon or even Burrow Sword Dragon instead. But I think Skull Dread suits this deck just fine. Now let's go into the combo that gets you out your access code talker. I mentioned this before in my Sky Striker video. It's pretty much the same that you see across a lot of decks. You're going to need Halki Fibrax. So when Halki Fibrax is brought out, you need to use 2 monsters including a tuner. You run both Ash Blossom and Effect Veiler. But it's very important to have Effect Veiler in your deck when you bring out Halki Fibrax. Because when you activate Halki Fibrax effect when he's brought out, you get the special summon Effect Veiler to a zone he points to. Then what we're going to do from there is we are going to use Halki Fibrax and the Effect Veiler. We're going to link 3 into Selene. Selene is very good. She is a link 3 spellcaster monster. The material she needs is 2+ monsters including a spellcaster monster. So Halki Fibrax and Effect Veiler is a good way to bring her out. So what Selene does is you get the count of all the spell cards on the field and in the graveyards, and she gains a counter for each one. Then what you can do is remove 3 spell counters from this card and special summon 1 spellcaster monster from your graveyard to the zone this card points to, which is a good way to get your Effect Veiler back out. And as soon as you do that, all you need to do is use Selene and Effect Veiler, and then you can go right into your access code talker. Access code talker is a very good boss monster. Reason for that is because this combo is so easy, you can throw it into a bunch of different decks. And his material is 2+ effect monsters. So Access Code Talker, the reason why he's so powerful is because he has the following effect. He's a link 4 with 2300 attack. But your opponent cannot activate a card or effect in response to this card's effect's activation. If this card is link summoned, you can target 1 link monster that was used as material for its link summon. And this card gains attack equal to the link rating of that monster times 1000. So when you're using Selene to go into him, he gains 3000 attack, bringing him up to 5300. Getting a monster up to 5300 is a very good way to beat over a bunch of your opponent's problematic cards, or even going straight for the OTK. That's why Access Code Talker works in a bunch of different decks, but I find it especially good when it comes to Witchcrafters. He also has a second effect. You can banish 1 link monster from your field or graveyard, destroy 1 card your opponent controls. Also for the rest of the turn, you cannot banish monsters with the same attribute to activate the effect of Access Code Talker. This will be very good for breaking board because it's not exactly once per turn, and considering that you use 2 different link monsters to go into him, it's very good at breaking down your opponent's board. Most times I feel though, when you're going into Access Code Talker, it's pretty much already over. Getting the monster up to 5300 attack is very good to go straight in for the kill. That's why Access Code Talker is so broken and so fucking expensive, even nowadays. So yeah, that pretty much does it for the extra deck. Overall, I think Witchcrafters is a very cool control deck. I think Witchcrafters are a very good chance of going up any meta decks, or even as a good way to bring them into your locals, or even the YCS in the future if feeling lucky. Witchcrafters may not be as powerful as their counterparts such as Dragon Maids or Sky Strikers, but but I still think it has a place in the meta in the future. Especially when it comes to new support coming out for them, I say this deck can go a long way, so it's good for you to learn the basics right now.